Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly conversation around why Black Lives Matter. From last week, our conversation centered very much on how the divine masculine and men of color can accept their divinity. So this is part 2 of that conversation. So there isn't a significant introduction today, so I'm just going to kind of open it up to everybody to share what they've been experiencing after last week's healing process and any new things that have come into the reality that we could possibly chat about and heal through.
Yeah, so I've been watching a lot of documentaries, and like God's just been guiding me to a lot of different movies and TV shows to watch to learn more. I think what I've started to realize, I think what really clicked for me last week as just a man, of like understanding what men feel. And so I was healing a lot of masculinity stuff. And so as we started to heal, the Black masculinity, I also obviously was healing masculinity within myself from that same space. And, I really wanted to kind of not be ignorant anymore, if that makes sense. Like there was a sense that I think I had a level of ignorance, and I just kind of numbed out to what actually is, because I see so many I think growing up I've just seen so many successful Black men in a way, and so it's like, well, it's a certain population that actually is choosing that's doing those things, and this population that's not choosing that is, whatever, right? And it makes sense. Like there is like the sense that like you're a divine being and like you have free will and you can make your own choices, but I wasn't like fully being present and aware with what was actually like at the core and upset with consciousness of Black and white people specifically, right? And the relationships that they have. And so so I watched the 13th Amendment. It's kind of an old documentary on Netflix, and like I didn't know that they never taught it in school or anything, which is funny. I don't know why they don't do that. American history. I saw that like when slavery was abolished, that they made the loophole that criminals would be the ones who
you couldn't be a slave if you were a criminal. So that's why like they were going out and doing crimes because they're like, fuck this, I ain't being a slave.
Well, kind of, not really.
Is that what you mean?
No.
I mean that's what we talked about. But
no, basically what it is that like they abolished slavery and they're like, we can't, like they can't be our slaves, and the only way they can be enslaved is
the other way.
Yeah, and it's like if they are a criminal, then you can enslave them, and that was like the loophole. And so in American government, and so at that time they started putting out publications that made it seem like Black men were scary and bad, and they had a storyline of this like uncle something, I don't know what his name was, but like a storyline of how this Black man was raping white women. And you think about it now and you're like, well, back in that time, actually it was more common that white men were raping Black women, and because we see a lot of mixed children coming out of that. So yeah, basically like I just had a lot more awareness as to like what actually is going on, and basically that like slavery, we're still in slavery, we still have slavery, it just looks different. And that was like where like I end off on was just understanding that like the hardcore level of trauma that Black men have undergone. Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. Well, there's still more healing to do, because it just doesn't yet feel to me that like we're still getting away with enslaving Black men. Like Black men are still in jail, And like when you think about jail too, like I was watching a documentary, and just also like what I've known about jail is like they're not treated like human beings. They're treated like animals. And even when I think about it now, like I remember one of the first things I ever healed when I joined this community was like feeling like I was a servant of God, just like an animal is a servant of God, and a child of God is who I am, divine, right? And so like we've been treating Black men like animals uh, for a very long time. And yeah, so I'm yeah, that's where I'm at in terms of like just like I'm right now like facing the upset or facing the thing and seeing it for what it is and feeling my feelings about it.
So if you could call the upset, what is the actual upset?
Yeah, I'm upset that um, Black men are not being seen as divine. So I'm upset that I'm not seeing that I am divine.
Mm-hmm. Is that true?
It's true that I'm not seeing it, but I choose to see it, and I know that I am divine.
Right.
It's
So
true that I am divine.
can you just look at that part of yourself that needs it's like burp, Ray, pay attention.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So can you see that part of yourself that's still not completely accepting your divinity?
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that part of you need to feel loved right now? And what do you need to actually just allow to release so that your divinity just naturally comes through?
I guess that it's okay to be myself and that I won't be like harmed or harmed.
Mm-hmm. And so in just being yourself, does that allow your true divinity?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the trick. The trick is that you don't have to attach or append or erase or change. It's just be true to you at your core, the way God made you, and boom, there sits your divinity. How does that feel?
Better.
Mm. And so, what is the emotional feeling attached to accepting your divinity? Yeah.
It's the feeling that like basically that others see that I'm also divine and respect that basically.
Are you responsible for how other people see and receive you?
I'm not, but boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the core of it, who is responsible for how God's children receive the rest of God's children?
Each person is responsible for seeing their own divinity.
Right, but God is responsible for how his children see each other, right?
Yes.
And so if you are concerned about how you are seen, received, or perceived, are you trying to control something here?
Probably. Yeah.
So do you choose to just release that control to where it belongs?
Yeah.
And surrender to your divinity shining through for you in your way, through God's divinity shining through you?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Peaceful, really relaxing. Like it's like I felt like this tightness just kind of like outwardly come out.
That's perfect. Because what was that tightness about?
I think it was a control of trying of like how other people viewed me in order to feel safe.
So you were constricting
Yeah.
how you are able to
Mhm.
love in that space.
Right.
And so when the
Yeah.
constriction lifts, the tightness lifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the core, you're just a loving person, and
Yeah.
it is the truth of your divinity.
Yeah.
And so it's safe to love.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Good.
Good. Does it feel complete, or is there something more? Yeah.
I think one of the things that came to my mind is like a system that supports me. I really resonate with Black men in that way, because like as a trans man, sometimes it feels like the system doesn't always support me. And so like, yeah, I get logically that to receive my support outside myself doesn't make sense, but like systematically, you know, it's harder to be like supported, like healthcare or jobs or things like that, like when you are yourself.
Who is responsible for the system?
God, essentially.
Right. And so
Yeah.
if things feel like they're moving slowly or not changing fast enough, are you choosing impatience with God in that space?
I think that there is a part of me that is impatient with God. Yes.
So could you just choose to release that?
Yeah.
Because it's really of no benefit to you, right?
Right.
And what do you choose in that place?
A system that does support me.
Amen.
and yeah, and for patience, and for
you allow your divine support in,
yeah,
and not be concerned about what it necessarily looks like immediately.
Yeah.
So do you choose your divine support in all areas of your life?
Yes.
Because where does your support come from?
God.
Right. It's divine support from a divine being, and you are a divine child of that divine being. So there's just divinity all over the place, right?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Good.
Does it feel complete? Is there more?
That feels complete.
Awesome. Would you like to just allow all of that healing to just integrate into your heart space and to just ground into the core of who you are?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Cool. So one of the things that you did speak about that I thought was quite also fitting is just that sense that men of color are held prisoner to perceptions and what it is in their space or their reality that's causing them to choose the prison that they are in. And I think the one thing that was quite interesting for me was when you mentioned the fact that if they were criminals, they couldn't be slaves. So they traded one form of insanity for another. And so at the core of it, the fact for me, the core of it is that they're not necessarily accepting their divinity because they traded off one form of insanity for another. And technically, we all know the value and the power of our choices. And so one of the keys to men of color accepting their divinity is to realize that they can make new choices in their reality because they do co-create with the divinest of them all. So the power that everybody else exercises in their divinity is also available to men of color. And the fact is, maybe it's just a situation of re-education, and a spiritual re-education more than anything else. To realize that you aren't your experience, and while your feeling is a part of you, you are not your feeling. You are you. And you are you because God made you so. You know, like there cannot be another definition of it. Like what else or who else had that great power of creation? And so at the core of it, our divinity stems from a divine being. And so we, in our divinity, can choose and co-create in our reality. And so I want to open that up to everybody and see how you feel about a comment as probably quite simplistic as that, but also feel into the truth of that comment and what it actually brings up for you.
Well, feeling into it, you know, like the core trauma, like it's still like being healed. Like that's like why we're seeing like slavery, like, you know, transform into something else, like the prison industrial complex. It's still, you know, it's the trauma is still like not healed at the core, or it is healed at the core and we're upheaving. I'm not clear there, but yeah, it's, you know, it's gonna take a lot of like love and patience and compassion, like to, oh, there goes Nico. To, you know, to like continue to heal this, and you know, that's like something I'm learning in my union, being patient with, you know, the divine masculine, and just, you know, not putting up with like the choice of abuse, obviously the choice to, you know, be abused either, or give in to the idea like, oh, the world's against me. Yeah, that's not going to help you. But you know, also just, you know, having that patience and compassion so they can open up to healing instead of like that guarded hard shell they put up. Yeah.
Yeah, so ironically, the first card that we have is patience. It says, you are able to let the universal energy of transformation move according to its own loving rhythm. And for me, what was really coming up as Marley was talking was, yeah, that we have to have a really deep, unconditional level of patience with God and trust, really having complete trust with God, and the fact that He is helping us heal the divine masculine. The other thing that came up was that as we heal, to like really make sure that we're staying in the consciousness of not seeing the divine masculine as a victim, because that's how we really start to heal and move through that, is to really make sure that we are standing in the truth of how fucking powerful the divine masculine is, and that he 100% has God, and that we can trust the divine masculine. That's something I'm really learning in my union, is that the more that I really choose to stand in that power of trusting the divine masculine, the more that he steps in his power and shows up. And in my life, it seems like lately the men in my life have really been truly healing at the core. They've been more open to receiving support, more open to asking for support and for help, very vulnerable lately, and just sharing their feelings and what they're moving through, and really allowing the divine feminine to support them in that space. And so just really, truly standing in our powers, really helping the divine masculine see clearly. It's just like he's kind of in a fog right now, and it's all being lifted, and we just have to be really patient as the fog lifts, but really trusting that God has a divine masculine, and just continue to know that this healing work is healing and is working, and releasing attachment to the results and the outcome.
One thing my perspective on it for the divine masculine, seeing himself as divine, and stepping into like his life purpose. I feel like that's a good point to make. That obviously correlates with seeing yourself as a divine being. For the Black divine masculine specifically, I feel like stepping into his divine purpose would also correlate with like economic status, like money for families, things like that, of that nature. So for me, like that's something that I noticed like with the Black men in my life, specifically like my grandfather. He worked for Chrysler for like 30 years. He made 6 figures for years. And my dad as well, he went back to school. He was like in his 50s. He claimed that for himself, as well as my brother. So I feel like education for one is important. And then just like the overall scope of stepping into their divine purpose, seeing God as their source. And because I feel like we're also healing being enslaved for so long definitely affected poverty and things like that in families. And that's kind of another form of, I guess, slavery from, I don't want to say the government, but it carried over into Black families being poor. Not that all are, but I'm just making a point there about that.
So like, I think what I'm facing, what I'm coming up against, I really appreciated, Kenesha, when you said, like, we can't look at them as victims, because I think there was a part of me that probably was, for sure. And you're totally right. That's not appropriate. But I think for me, it's like, okay, there's a desire in my heart to like create change in this space, right? There's a desire in a lot of people's hearts. Obviously, that's why we're all here. We've been here for how many episodes now? Like, you know, there's a desire for us to create change for them. So like, I have to also believe that there is a way that we can hold space for them and create that for them in a way with them, right? Like there's a reason why God is having us do these things for them. Like, it's not like you know, like, yes, someone would choose that within their heart, but then at the same time, there's going to be resources that are going to come into that space, right? There's going to be a desire in someone's heart to then bring about those resources. So for example, like, I'm in the grocery store. I think I talked about this last time. I'm in the grocery store and I need to find, you know, tomato sauce, but I have no idea where it is. I'm like, God, I need help finding tomato sauce. I choose to find the tomato sauce. And then someone comes up to me because they had it in their heart and they heard me and God told them to come to me, to speak to me. And then they tell me where the tomato sauce is and they help me, right? Mm-hmm. And so like, what I'm pointing to here is that like, one, laws need to change in the United States, where like there isn't there's specific laws in regards to drugs, like marijuana specifically, that have caused Black men to go into jail. Also, a lot of Black men will just go to jail because they can't afford to have trial, and so they say, well, if we were to go to trial, they probably would put me in for 6 years because I don't have any proof or money to pay for a lawyer. So I will take the plea bargain. And so like, there's just a lot of things where there's not a lot of resources in terms of the legal system. And so like that needs to change.
Sorry.
And then we talked about education, like Morgan talked about education, right? Like the education systems need to change. Where we giving more resources to communities that have more people of color in it? Because statistically speaking, we're not doing that. And so like there's like a lot of things that have to change, like with like externally too. Like there's external actions that need to happen. And of course you don't want to like just like get all caught up in the mess of it. But I think what I've been finding is, okay, what piece of what the change, like here's the change that needs to happen. What role do I play in that? And so like
You're
for
already
me,
playing it.
right.
Yeah, I
Communicating
mean,
about
like,
it.
yeah, like like I like to see like TFU is like the vehicle, and then we got like Divine Dish, you got BLM and Church of Union are like the tires of the vehicle, and
Yeah.
like we're all going in the one direction. But like we think about like we have so many people coming into TFU, and probably like 1/5 of them could be Black men of color, and it only takes one of them to hear the healing that we're doing for it to be shared. And God could use that person. And so what we're doing here is the change, and God will use whoever he needs to. And that's part of the patience. That's part of letting go of control of how it's going to orchestrate itself, how it's going to unfold. God already has it taken care of. He's like, y'all doing the hard, like you guys are doing the work. Thank you. I'll send the people that need to be there. But Jeff and Shaleia have really created such a solid foundation to really bring this work to people. And I think we just hit like 18,000 people in the open forum. Like that is crazy. So just as we really choose to ground deeper in this work, and like I said, have that ultimate trust and faith within ourselves and within God, like we only need a mustard seed and he's going to move mountains. And so just trusting that what you're doing already is the change.
Yeah. I think that like the dialogue is definitely important to be had. I definitely see the effect that we're having in our conversations and in our healing. Like last week, the fact that like at the same time that we were having our dialogue, you know, we had the news break out about, you know, the police officer who murdered George Floyd be put to jail. And yeah, like I see that, right? I think that there's just a stronger desire in my heart as to the politics behind it all, and to really like I uncover all of it, because from an education standpoint, because I haven't been educated in this space. And so right now I feel like I'm like just like peeling the onion back and then allowing myself to heal what I'm witnessing. If that makes sense. I know that I'm not going to be someone who goes knocking on doors and lobbying for change in the government. I know that that's not who I am. That's not my role. But I do know that as I see the things that need to be changed, I can, you know, within myself, like envision that, desire that, communicate about that, and promote that, right? And so, yeah, for me, it's like just not being numbed out. Because I think that that's what a lot of white people have been doing, is just numbing out to what's happening. And you know, like we recently had somebody that we knew talk a lot about white privilege and how bad it is to be called white privilege and all this other stuff. And I think I just don't think that the world has a lot of education as to what's going on. And so I'm peeling back the onion is what's been important for me.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that there's a component here that I also think all of us need to appreciate. As you know, we are on part 43. That means, in essence, we have been having this very educational, very healing conversation for the sum total of almost 11 months. So we also need to appreciate that even though, as you said, Ray, we are not the people that are going to stand on street corners with placards and those kind of things, we are responding to collective consciousness's call for healing in this space. And so what we are bringing to the table is significant. It is huge. There is quite a bit of spiritual mastery just in this team. There's quite a bit of spiritual mastery in the community that we belong to. There's significant amounts of love in the community that we belong to. There's a significant, powerful healing baseline in the community that we belong to. This is not chop change. It is not small. We don't have to be the people that actually stand at the top of the Statue of Liberty and go BLM, 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 you know. But at the same time, consciousness called for us to dedicate and commit to this. And we have been doing it for the greater part of 11 months. It is significant. And I think we need to appreciate how significant it is. We constantly say it's not a moment, it's a movement. We have been in our movement for 11 months. It's time to also appreciate what we've brought to the table.
Amen. Because our card is surrender your belief in scarcity, which I love. So the universe is asking you to open to the infinite nature of abundance. In this way, you can remove blocks in your life and succeed beyond your wildest dreams.
Amen.
So it looks like he's about to go on a journey. And that's what we're doing here. We're going on a journey, and the healing that we're doing is eternal. Like, that's a lot of work. You gotta allow it to ground, you gotta allow it to move, and you gotta let God do what he needs to do. And so yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us, because you're right. Like, that's also part of where a lot of people get lost in doing the mirror work, mirror exercises. Sometimes, and Jeff really touched on this, sometimes we do the mirror exercise and we have things just manifest so quickly and so abundantly and so fast. And then we have moments where like things need to align and things need to shift for that to come in. And then all of a sudden, because it's not coming in, we're like, well, am I doing it wrong? Like, what's going on here? It's no longer working, or whatever it is. And we're really just delaying the process because we're not sitting in that faith and that trust that this work is healing, it's happening. And just allowing it to, the word that's coming to my mind is bloom. It's like you have a flower that's just slowly opening up, and then it's like all of a sudden we're in it, and you're just like, wow, like all that work is finally either shown slowly or it just happens. And so, yeah, knowing that this work is eternal and that what we're doing here is going to affect generations to come.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I wanted to say that we need to acknowledge that we are activists in our own rights. And what I was thinking about was how in the beginning of this discussion, I was saying that I didn't feel called to take to the streets like my friends. It was actually because God was asking me to save up my energy to go this long in the discussion, to heal and do my part here. And so, yeah, it's just like this discussion is a testament to we don't need to go physically confront the problem to heal. Like, I feel like the education and the information is coming quite naturally and beautifully to us. Like, we are a group, we have a chat, we always share the content, information, we have YouTube. Like, even as recently as yesterday, I was like learning more about how the system was discriminating Black people. And so, like, piece by piece, we are seeing you know, it's kind of a puzzle that we're completing about our comprehension in society and how to heal it. And so it's very beautiful. It requires patience, but yeah, we don't need to burn out our energy going, you know, out of our way to search for where we have to go heal. It's coming to us. It's coming to us, like, basically.
This reminds me of the twin flame dynamic. Like, you know, you see a lot of divine feminines in twin flame ascension school, you know, holding it down for the, you know, divine masculine to come home. Like Anastasia was here for a while and then Ray showed up. Oh, it said the live ended. When I started speaking, what the heck?
No, the live ended when Irene was talking, but continue with what you're saying because we're recording, right?
Okay.
Well,
Well, yeah. You know, I think like that's something I was feeling like.
Sorry,
you
hold
know,
on, Molly. I just want to check. Do you guys want us to try and go live again, or should we just leave it at that for today?
Let's
go
try and
live.
go live again.
Okay. Okay. That is so bizarre. Okay, just hold on. I just want to see something about... Okay, I'm going to go live again.
Perhaps this is also a call, Marley. I think it's interesting that this happened right before it came to your mind. This might be a call for us to have a dialogue maybe next week about like how Black Lives Matter affects the twin flame dynamic and how it affects unions and harmonious union and all that stuff. And go live in the Twin Flames universe discussion and Twin Flames universe open forum instead. And then, you know, say moving forward and in the past, we've done it on the Unionism Spiritual Discussion Group. Here's a link. Go join there. Should you want to continue conversation with us? We talk a lot about this, you know.
Okay, so let's definitely feel into that as a process. But I'm going live, so let's see.
we're live again. Hello, everyone. We got cut out, but I was just about to speak. I think when we got cut out, or Yureen was finishing up what she was saying, but yeah, I want to share that this is like, you know, this what we have to do is basically very similar to like the twin flame dynamic. Like we gotta heal, we gotta just focus on healing ourselves, seeing what's in our reality and seeing if this upsets us, and then like reflecting it back and, you know, creating a sanctuary, you know, within us, and then inviting the divine masculine in, you know, as we continue healing. Yeah, I was just like sensing like there's some hurt, you know, here, and you can't, we can't like do anything on the outside to get the divine masculine here. It's all inner. And I was saying, like Anastasia was here from the get-go in Twin's universe. And then, Ray eventually came along, and just gotta have faith that, the work you're doing, no matter how long it takes, seemingly, or, how, dismal it may look on the outside, it's very possible to, have that and, work through those blocks. Another thing I want to, mention, which I thought was really cool last week. Spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If anyone's been watching that, it's it's about the Falcon, who's a Black superhero, and Winter Soldier, who's Steve Rogers' best friend, the other Captain America. And the last episode just aired last Friday. And it was revealed that, the Falcon took on being Captain America. And it was something he was struggling with throughout, like the series. And, I'm a Black man, I'm representing America, but I don't know if America wants me, and all these things were coming up. And it was just really cool to see, that representation, like, in such a huge show. This was like the most expensive TV show created, like, ever, I learned. And to have, like, him, like, claim that title, and claim his power, claim his home, that just, I feel, is really, like, really cool. And it was definitely reflecting the healing work we were doing last week with, like, the divine masculine. Like, okay, they're claiming their purpose, they're this, like, they're not letting, he wasn't letting these doubts or these judgments of himself or any of the system, like, keep him from holding this title that really, like, meant a lot to him and means a lot to other people who watch the show and are, like, fans of Marvel. And it's just, it was so cool. You guys got to watch it. Even if I gave it away, it's a really great show, and you can see a lot of racial things worked through in that show, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Black Panther. Sorry, Kenisha. The Black Panther movie with Chadwick Boseman, like, how everyone was really affected by his death. But yeah, he played amazing roles in all of his movies, and he really claimed his power there, and I feel like he lived out his purpose, before God took him away. And so it was really like monumental for a lot of African Americans, just the Black Panther movie alone, but specifically Chadwick Boseman and the roles he's played. So it just kind of reminded me of that, Marley.
Yeah, you touched on how he didn't, like, doubt himself or judge the situation. And for me personally, I realized that in my union, I was deeply judging myself. I wasn't really judging my twin flame, but I was judging myself. And because I was judging myself, I could not, one, recognize my twin flame clearly, and it also didn't allow a space for him to come in where he felt safe and secure and able to just be his divine self, because I was not holding a space for him there, nor for myself. And so a lot of people are like, oh, my divine masculine is running, or he wants nothing to do with me, or he's abandoning me. And it's really looking at that space where you're judging yourself or abandoning yourself, and really just taking that full responsibility within yourself, so that you can create that space for your divine masculine or your divine feminine, or whoever's doing the inner work. But really having to come to that place of releasing judgment of what society is going to think of you, releasing judgment of how you think you're supposed to show up or when you're supposed to show up, and just allowing yourself to be, allowing yourself to flow, and allow God to move through you, essentially. I found that as soon as I just asked God to move through me in the way that he desired to, and to show me how he really desired me to live life, it really came down to, I just want you to stop looking at yourself like you're broken. I want you to stop looking at yourself like you're a victim of some sort, like you are absolutely whole and complete and divine. And as soon as you make that shift in your mind, everything will be very clear. Everything will start to make complete sense to you. And it did very quickly. It was just like I had to release, I had to let go of resistance of God's love and how it showed up and who it showed up through. And sometimes I would really heavily judge, like, oh, like this is coming from this person. This can't be God. That's a lie. And really just surrendering to love is really what it is. Surrendering to who you are at the core, and that is unconditional love. And then showing up in that way, allowing yourself to just be.
Yeah, what I wanted to touch on quickly is I think we saw quite a few Black actors and Black creators, musicians, men being at the forefront this week, and so it feels like great success. Yeah, it feels like they're truly slowly but surely claiming their power. It's quite beautiful to see, and it just like shows me how much like how we lacked powerful Black men in movies and representations throughout the years, and it feels like there's some part of me like that feels fulfilled right now. Just saying that, it feels good. So yeah, I just really wanted to appreciate that and just ground into that success.
It's interesting for me as a white man. Like in the beginning of this whole like conversation and the dialogue, it's like very angry with Black men, and like very judgmental, and just there felt like a tension, right? And like now, like I see my Black brothers and sisters obviously too, and I just like feel so much love and peace in my heart, and it feels so much lighter. I can only imagine how people who like actually watch this and heal alongside us probably feel, but like I don't know, that speaks volumes to me, and like I have to believe that that's like permeating through consciousness of that exact same feeling of like, because like literally the way we've viewed Black men and just Black people in general in the past has been not good. And the fact like that someone who was like raised in a like predominantly white town, not knowing a lot about Black people or Black culture, and like feeling very scared a lot of the times being around Black people when I was younger, and like to now just feel so much love in my heart. And it's not just like my friends, like all this select few Black people, right? Like no, it's like and anyone, like any, like I just it's a change that like I think that like I think I mean we see permeating through consciousness, and I'm grateful for everybody for the healing that we've been doing last 11 months, because it's affected me. And so
Yeah, and I think I think you touch on a very important component in that the vibration of where society was sitting when it came to the first incidents related to BLM and the start of the movement has shifted, and it needs to shift. And I can comfortably believe that just our contribution here has also assisted in that shift, because vibrationally it couldn't stay that way. As the healing happened, the shift had to happen to align to a much healthier vibration of relating to people across the board. It shouldn't be that one layer of society is sitting here and another sitting here and another sitting here. So if there's a vibrational set point that requires a shift in consciousness, that shift has to affect all those layers, because it toggles, but it's never significantly lower or higher.
Yeah, I was Ray, as you were speaking, you mentioned something about like something that resonated with me around tension, feeling the tension, and that's been something that I've been working through. And for me, it kind of feels like a lack of forgiveness, or I've been moving through forgiveness. And when I put myself in the divine masculine shoes, men of color shoes, I can see how it can be hard to forgive past hurts put on by white America or racist white America, right? And kind of working through that forgiveness. But I learned this morning actually in my coaching session, like forgiveness isn't actually like saying that it was okay. It's just releasing your relationship to the hurt and releasing the victimhood. And that was like a huge awakening for me. Like that was really big. And so I do feel like when you let go of that hurt and your relationship to it, I can definitely see how like as a consciousness, we're all moving into a greater place of peace. It just feels a lot better because you don't have to hold on to that victimhood. And when you let go of it, it's like there was really nothing to forgive, kind of, because you don't even have a relationship with abusing yourself or hurting yourself in any kind of way. So that was big for me.
Yeah, what you're speaking to is compassion. You're like forgiveness is like having compassion for the situation, like, and like letting it go, like you said, like not having that relationship. And I think it's interesting, like you know, when you have that like pretty bad experience or something like that, to have compassion for the other person, because like it's like it doesn't mean that they're not divine, right? Like, sure, there might have been actual stories of Black men who have done some shitty shit, right? But I have compassion because I know that they're moving through something. That doesn't mean that I don't have a boundary, right? It doesn't mean that they don't receive the discipline. It's recognizing that they're still divine, that they can still make new choices, that they can still heal, that they can still love themselves. And I don't need to be afraid of them, because fearing them isn't the answer to their salvation, my salvation. It's loving them, and that love can look different. And seeing someone's divinity sometimes also means that you see that they can make a choice, and that they you honor their choice. And so sometimes that means putting a boundary up where they, you know, where that boundary needs to be placed, right? And that loves them. That really helps them.
Yeah, I love that. I love what Deanna said about forgiveness, absolutely. And that's something I think that's really helped me continue with this work, was having quite a few people in my life who I really had to forgive, and then realizing I was forgiving them for myself, so that I could heal and move forward. And it seemed like the people that made a new choice would always come back and randomly apologize, whether the upset was like 10 years ago or whatever, because I did the energetic work. They felt that too. It's like with your twin flame, but not as automatic, and they're not your twin flame, but the inner work works in that way. And by forgiving and allowing that to happen within yourself, and then they come through and choose to apologize if that's what they choose, then you're opening up an opportunity for dialogue, an opportunity to have a deeper understanding of one another as a divine being. And then also an opportunity for them to go deeper in healing if that's what they desire, if that's what they choose. That's something I found within just my immediate family, is by doing this inner work. And then when they're ready, they will apologize and we'll have a conversation. And I'm really able to help them go deeper in their healing, and they continue to choose love, and we continue to vibe up together. And so, yeah, that forgiveness is truly for you. However, it opens so many doors because you have chosen to have compassion and unconditional love there. And I really love that even just when I started Black Lives Matter, I had a really deep upset with a Black man. I was so mad at the Black man. I was just like, I don't want anything to do with him. I don't know why I'm here, because I'm Black and they said I should be here. And so, but now I'm just like, man, like, I have so much compassion and unconditional love for them. And God has really done some healing, has brought in a lot of healing for me around men of color. And it's like my perception has completely changed. And I'm so grateful for that, because that's really what I wanted. Is I didn't want to judge. I was realizing I was judging the Black man, but really I'm judging the divine masculine altogether. Like I said last week, there's just one divine masculine, and each man will show you where you're having an upset with the divine masculine, essentially where you're having an upset with God. And so choosing to just heal through it and have compassion and allow yourself that forgiveness. And then one of the things that I also do in my inner work is, when I have held on to something for so long, not only do I forgive them, but energetically, I ask them to forgive me for holding on to this anger for so long. Because like I was holding on to this anger, and that's where that energy was there. The energy couldn't move because I was being so stubborn with holding on to it for so long. And things just transform in that way. So deep forgiveness and compassion is huge.
Awesome. Thank you, Kanisha. Yeah, I think that's a perfect spot for us to end our conversation today. So I'm going to thank all of you for your contribution today, and for just the wonderful healing conversation that we've had. And to everybody that's commented on our videos and been following us across our 11 months of conversation around why Black Lives Matter, we do appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you. And we'd like you to all like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous conversations around why Black Lives Matter. And we will see all of you next week. Thank you, everybody.